Welcome to the Thornton Review.
The show designed with you in mind. If it's important to you, it's important to us.
We want to thank today's sponsor, Next Door Photos Emerald Coast. They offer next-day professional real estate photography and videography. I use them for all my Airbnb photography. If you're a real estate agent or you have an Airbnb, I recommend Next Door Photos. Today we have Escambia County Sheriff Chip Simmons
Yes.
in the studio with us. Chip, thank you for being on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So you grew up in Pensacola, but you were born on a military base in Iceland.
Yeah,
What do you remember about Iceland, and what was your favorite thing?
well, honestly, not much. My father was in the Navy, so we were stationed, and he was stationed, and he and my mother were stationed at Naval Air Station Keflavik, Iceland. My older brother and I both were born in Iceland, and then after a couple of years, we obviously, he got stationed in Key West, and then subsequently he got stationed to Pensacola, Florida. And from that point on, I've been a Pensacola, Florida native. I want to call myself a native.
Right. Okay. So you've been in Pensacola since the third grade.
Mm-hmm.
You're a product of Escambia County School District. So school was a little different. I'm a product of Escambia County School District.
Right.
And so the school system has changed a little since then. Do you know why? I mean, we had a lockdown at Escambia High School a couple weeks ago because of fighting. What's going on? What is different in the schools? Why are we having lockdowns? Why do we have the police officers at schools? Why did we take corporal punishment out of schools? Do you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't know all that. I know I went to Bellevue Elementary School. I went to Bellevue Middle School and Pine Forest High School. So, yeah, I'm a product of Escambia County Schools.
Mm-hmm.
It really, all I can tell you is that the school district, that the schooling when I was going and where we are now is vastly different. You know, they did take corporal punishment out. Whose decision that was, I don't know if it was a school board, if it was the superintendent at the time. I know though that when I was in school, when you misbehaved, you were liable to get a whipping from one of the deans or the principal.
Well, punishment came swiftly. They
Yeah.
didn't just wait to punish people. If the children misbehaved, they were either spanked or sent home. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, and that would be a decision or a conversation that you would have with the administrations of each school, and I suppose from the superintendent and from the school board itself. You talked a little bit about the lockdowns. I think that some of that is different than what it was when we went to school. We didn't have the threat of school violence. We didn't have what we have now, and what happened and to our kids and why that is now a threat, whether it's from a student or from some other crazy person coming into a school. But we have a network now designed to put schools on lockdown. If law enforcement has an event anywhere near a school, we'll put a school on lockdown so that we can kind of ascertain what the situation is, if there's any danger to the school, and if there's any danger within a school. And the school district themselves, I'm assuming, made the decision at the school you're talking about, I think it was Escambia you mentioned, that if they have a fight, if it's a large-scale fight, then they put things on lockdown again until they can kind of get a handle on things. Again, that's a lot of what we do now is based upon, unfortunately, it's based upon experience, that not just here in Escambia County, but Columbine and Uvalde and different schools that we in Parkland, we have different pieces of information that we get, and then we develop a plan so that we can hopefully prevent this types of thing from happening here. And then if God forbid something does happen, then we can address those things.
So you went to PJC
I
and
did.
Troy State University, and you have your bachelor's degree in criminal justice and your master's degree in public administration. Can you tell us a little about college life and what led you to have an interest in criminal justice?
Well, growing up, again, my father was in the military, so he wore a uniform every day to go and to go to work, and I saw that, and I was always kind of pushed to have a service, an occupational profession in service, and I wanted to do that. So I thought, law enforcement is something that I think I could do. I could serve my community in a law enforcement capacity, and so when I went to Pensacola Junior College at the time before it changed names, I wasn't sure at first, so I took some general studies classes. Ultimately, I decided criminal justice is where I wanted to go. So I ended up getting a job at Escambia County Sheriff's Office initially as a corrections officer, and then moved to Pensacola Police Department, where I spent 29 years. throughout that time, I worked my way through college. I wasn't able to go to school and only go to school. I had to work and then go to school at night or go to school during the weekends. So I was able to do that and get my bachelor's degree, because at the Pensacola Police Department, you can't advance unless you have a bachelor's degree. And so I was able to obtain that bachelor's degree, and I thought I want to continue. I didn't mind school, so I went and got my master's degree in public administration, with the thought that perhaps one day I could be one of the senior staff members of the Pensacola Police Department, and ultimately it paid off. I was a police chief for a number of years.
Okay, so you worked at the Pensacola Police Department for a total of 29 years.
Right.
At what point were you appointed or elected to police chief? Is that an appointed or an elected position?
That's an appointed position.
By the
I kind of
mayor.
branched. Those of you who've been in Pensacola know a long time ago they had a city manager, county or city council form of government. So I was a police chief under that form of government, under city manager Al Kobe.
Okay.
And then it transitioned. There was a vote in the city, and they went to what they call now a strong mayor form of government. So initially I was appointed by the city manager, approved by the city council, and then after this change in government, I was appointed by the mayor, and then again approved by the city council at the time. So I was a police chief under both forms of government.
Okay.
Let me ask for one more.
Sure.
I just want to say, when did you realize that this is my calling, this is where I want to be, and this is where I want to make my contribution?
That's a good question. I think that once you get into law enforcement, you really don't know what to expect. You see things on television. You have an idea. You ride along and you read the paper and you see what's going on locally. But when you get out there and you answer calls for service and you realize that the people that you go and make contact with, this may be their worst day of their lives, and if you can help them and you see the need, that's really sometimes it's indescribable. You would go home at night and you feel pretty good about yourself. You help somebody. Yes, there's things that you see in a law enforcement capacity that's hard to just close your eyes and not think about, but I don't think that a law enforcement officer can ever go home and not think that they've done a good service to their community. So that's I never had any doubt that law enforcement was a calling for me. Now, whether I wanted to advance to sergeant and then lieutenant, captain, assistant chief, and then police chief, you start to look. You say, you know what? I've learned a lot. And I think that I can help even more. I can become a leader. I can become a mentor for other police officers. I can run a shift. I can direct a SWAT team, which I was fortunate enough to be the SWAT commander. So I'm able to do that. And then I think if you can have an impact as a police officer, you can certainly have an impact as a sergeant, and even more so as a shift commander, more so as a captain. That way you can kind of decide who goes to what beat and how the beat structure is even formulated. And then as a police chief, again, you are, and I'll say this probably a couple of times today, but you're like the chief cheerleader for the agency. You're the one that's responsible to say, this is what we're doing, and we really appreciate the work of the men and women, in law enforcement at the time at the Pensacola Police Department. So, to your question, Charles, I think it's more of it kind of chose me. I chose the occupation, then I couldn't get out of it. I did retire for a period of time and went to work at the Escambia County for the Board of County Commissioners in Escambia County as the assistant county administrator, and then I went right back into law enforcement, and I'm where I'm at now.
Okay.
So, well, what better person to hire or appoint as the assistant county administrator as the police chief who has a master's in public administration?
It seemed to work, didn't it?
Yeah.
So it worked out very well.
That was great.
So, well, how long were you in that position, and what exactly is that position? Because citizens here in Escambia County don't really hear too much about that position.
Right.
What exactly is that position? What was your job?
Well, I think it's important to kind of know where I was, and again, in my career. I had been the assistant chief for 7 years, and then I became the police chief. So you kind of have an idea of governmental budgeting. And then again, as you mentioned, I have a master's degree in public administration. So the county administrator, Jack Brown at the time, he was looking for a chief corrections officer. And he knew that I had originally started my career in corrections, and I had went through Corrections Academy, had actually worked as a corrections officer, and now as a police chief. So he asked me if I would be on the committee to help interview and hire a couple of positions at Escambia County. And so I did that, and then he called and says, hey, I have a need for an assistant county administrator. So the county government is really pretty big. They have over a $500 million budget, and there's a county administrator who works for 5 county commissioners. And then when I was there, we had 2 assistant county administrators. Amy Lavoie was one, and I became the other. And so we basically divided up the county and county workforce. And I had public safety, I had fire, I had EMS, I had facilities, I had corrections, I had animal control. I had all of the ones that are the public safety type, uniformed type of employees and service industries. And so that's what I was doing. I was there for about a year, almost a year and a half.
So you're in charge of like hiring the department heads, making sure budgeting. Is that what the job entails?
Well, I was a day-to-day operations. I mean, I didn't work in that, but Jack Brown was responsible for hiring the department heads.
Okay.
But we worked very well together on a direction of, I would be part of setting the direction, working with the budget within each of the individual departments of the Board of County Commissioners, and then I was responsible for bringing some of those, the budget amendments and those sort of things to the Board of County Commissioners. Fortunately, I had some very good people that worked for me. Facilities had a great facilities director. In corrections, I had Whitney Lucas, who's now in private industry, but she ran pretty much all the budgeting for corrections, which was a huge thing for us. So it worked out that I had a lot of help in the job that I do. And as we all know, if you really want to be successful, hire and surround yourself with good people, and they make you look good.
There you
so
go,
it worked
yeah.
out well.
Per our discussion.
Exactly.
I have a question. Prior to you're going over to taking position of sheriff, there were some issues between the board, Escambia County Commissioners, and the prior sheriff regarding budget. I remember we had some back and forth budget issues. How has your tenure been as far as with the county administrator? Each one is in their own right a vote, and you need 3 at all times. So how difficult, how pleasant, how difficult has it been?
Yeah. Again, another good question. To let people know that the Board of County Commissioners approved the vote for the budget for all the departments within the county, to include the sheriff's office. Now, once that is approved, then the sheriff has sole discretion on what to do with that budget. But we have to go to the Board of County Commissioners to get approval for the budget. That's the way it is for the entire state of Florida. So, yeah, the previous administration had some disagreements over the budget. And the state statutes allow for the sheriff's office to appeal the budget to the governor's office. So that kind of gives us a little bit of a check and a balance, so that a county commission can't just underfund a sheriff's office, but a sheriff can't over request what they need. So there were some disagreements. That wasn't necessarily my style. I mean, I wanted to make sure that I do right by the citizens. I want to make sure that I do right by the taxpayer dollars, but I also want to make sure that I don't think that the citizens of Escambia County wanted the bickering and the fighting amongst their elected politicians. Again, that may be someone else's style, it just wasn't mine. So when I got elected, one of the things I told the people before I got elected was that I plan on working with the Board of County Commissioners. And I think that if I can explain to them this is the need, and these are the needs of the sheriff's office, that I think that we would come to an understanding. And fortunately, my relationship with the Board of County Commissioners, again, so many of them were county commissioners when I was working as a assistant county administrator. So I had a relationship, and I understood the budgeting process pretty well because of that background. And I had already had a relationship with many of the county commissioners. So, and we understand business is business. We understand that they're looking after taxpayer dollars, or certainly should be, and I'm looking after taxpayer dollars, and certainly should be. So my relationship with the Board of County Commissioners is going well. I mean, they understand that I'm the sheriff, and that I'm gonna handle the sheriff's office the way that I feel like the citizens deserve, and that costs money. To me, there's no higher priority than law enforcement. And so it's easy for me to say, hey, Commissioner A, B, C, D, or E. I think if you're looking at prioritizing the budget, the sheriff's office, to me, public safety, police, fire, EMS should be number one. And then from that point on, then we can divvy up the rest of the money. Now, again, I understand that's a little biased, but I'm also a product of Escambia County. I grew up here. I raised my children here, and you don't have anything if you don't have a safe community.
That's true.
I got a couple of things I want to I'll get the first one out first. And one of them is there's a new something that I don't know whether it's a collaboration or whether it's individual between you and the police department, Pensacola Police Department, as far as there's a certain type of equipment or there's something that detect bullet shots that ammo.
Right.
Could you? I only know what I read, but you're
Right.
the sheriff, so maybe you can enlighten myself and the public.
Yeah,
on
well,
what
I have a certain knowledge about it. I think that in today's society, we all take advantage of technology. We're here doing a podcast because we have taken advantage of the ability to do so.
Right.
You're live, and then you also be able to replay that. 20 years ago, we couldn't do this type of thing. We'd have to record it, and then we'd take a video tape somewhere else. So law enforcement's no different than that. So we take the information technology that we have, and we try to make law enforcement a little bit better. And that's what we're trying to do with a real-time crime center. And then the real-time crime center basically is a series of computers and a network, really. We're going to call it the STAR network that incorporates our cameras, hopefully school district cameras, City of Pensacola cameras, Escambia County cameras, and then it helps us to be able to find missing individuals, helps us to be able to find wanted criminals, and in a real time type, so we can get a dispatcher can tell you, hey, we're looking at this, and part of that is what we call a shot spotter. There are a couple other technologies, but shot spotter is the one we're looking at, and it'll detect what
Does that have
it
facial
perceives.
recognition?
No.
Okay.
This is a noise. It detects a noise that it perceives as a gunshot, and then it'll activate us right away, and so that we will know whenever Right now, we get a call of a shots fired call. We will go there, but we won't have information until we get there. With ShotSpotter, the deputy that's responding or the Pensacola police officer that's responding will know that now we do have a gunshot, and they're looking for cars that may be leaving.
And you have those in specific areas of town.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We have some of those cameras.
Like high
And
crime
we're not alone. We're actually one of we're kind of behind the times. I know that our neighbors, Baldwin County, Mobile County, both have real-time crime centers. Bay County, Okaloosa County, Walton, all of them have real-time crime centers, but we haven't had it. So I'm kind of playing catch-up, but I'm playing catch-up pretty quickly. And we're going to get the real-time crime center, and then really a small part of that is the shot spotter, and we're trying to get an appropriation by the state to pay for this, because again, we don't have the funds available right now for that.
Okay.
And it is a partnership with the City of Pensacola. I've had a couple of conversations with the mayor, and we're kind of in this together, and that we will work with the Pensacola Police Department and the City of Pensacola. Will have access to many of the cameras that they already have downtown, and then we can help them. They can help us, and they'll actually take part. The plan is for their employees to actually be in our real-time crime center whenever we get up and running, which should be in a couple months.
That's awesome. That's great.
That sounds great. One more, then I'll turn it over. How do we determine where we're going to put a substation, and how many, if you can share, how many do we have, and what dictates that? Is it demographics as far as the number of people? Is it based on what is it based on?
Budget. No.
Well, it's based on calls for service.
Okay.
If we don't have as many deputies in the north end because the population is not there, so the calls for service are not there. When I was a police chief, we had a beat structure, and it was based upon calls for service. So if there's more calls for service in a specific geographical area, then that beat would be smaller. All right, and those that have the fewer calls for service, then those beats obviously would be larger, and so the precincts are the same way. When I came to the sheriff's office, and obviously when I became the sheriff, we take a look at the precincts that we have. And right now we have a precinct. When I took office, we had a precinct in Century. We had a precinct in Warrington. We have our main office right there on Leonard Street. We had a precinct in Pensacola Beach. And then we had a precinct over in Warrington. I quickly opened a precinct in Perdido to handle Johnson's Beach in the area just north of there, and I reopened these precinct up in Molino.
Okay.
And so I've added two, and I'm
Is
glad
the
you
one
asked
in
that question.
Cantonment on Muskogee Road?
It's a little north of there.
Okay, so
it's,
they
it's
moved.
A little, yeah, it's
That's
a
where
little
it
north
was
of
when I
there.
was
It's on the
growing
right hand
up.
side
Yeah.
of Pensacola. Yeah, it has moved. So, but the needs are I also have to look at where the needs are going to be, not just this year, but where the needs going to be in 5 years and in 10 years, because I think I'd be doing a disservice to the community if I don't look ahead and let the county commission know, hey, I think I'm going to need a precinct. So Beulah, I'm looking for one potentially in Beulah because of the tremendous growth
Yes.
that's
Right,
taking
right.
place in Beulah, and you don't do these things, as you guys know, right away. I mean, it takes some you have to find a location, you have to fund it, you have to build it, and you have to do a lot of things. So I'm looking for one in Beulah, and then I'm looking for one potentially in Myrtle Grove. There's some areas, you basically look at the map of the Escambia County and say, we have one, spread out, but we sure could use one in this location and in that location. And that's where I'm at with regards to precincts.
So once we put them up, and I don't know, why did I call it a substation when it's a precinct?
Well, it used to be called a substation. It was it's the same thing. It's a precinct is an area, but a substation is actually a building.
That means I'm old school, right?
It means, yeah, I knew exactly what you're talking about. So that means both of us are old school.
Okay. I guess it pretty much pays for itself in time cost. Once you make that initial investment, does the history or the track record dictate that it pays for itself and in different ways as far as timely responses, just availability, sometime within itself probably decreases crime and everything. So
again, that's exactly what I looked at. I didn't want to open a precinct or a substation just to say I did it. I want to be able to. You have to be able to man that. You have to put the employees, the deputies there, and you have to make sure that it means something. You have to make sure that there's a reason for that. So, there is. There's the thought that if you police an area, a smaller area, and that is their substation, you can have town hall meetings there. You can have neighborhood association meetings there. You can meet with the shift lieutenant. You can meet with the sheriff. You can meet with a number of different people at their substation. They don't have to go all the way to Leonard Street. We've had many meetings, many community meetings at our substation or precinct in Warrington. We do that with some of the ones in Navy Point, some of the ones in Bayou Davenport. We've had meetings there that I've attended, and again, you don't have to go all the way to the Leonard Street. You can talk to the lieutenant that works that area, that is familiar with the type of calls that Johnson's Beach has, that Perdido has, that Warrington has, and I think that's the value of having the precinct as it's not just ours, it's the community's. It's part of the community, which is really what we strive to be.
I've spoken with Rev. Miller, J.H. Miller out of Warrington, and he speaks highly of you. Evidently, you've been very cooperative, and you and him has formed some type of relationship in Warrington because he speaks highly of you.
James Miller's a former police chief, so he talks police lingo, and I tell you what, Pastor Miller is one of my favorite people in the whole world, and you know him well.
I know him.
It doesn't get any better than Pastor Miller, and I'm glad to hear him saying that because I don't want to watch this, but I really think he's one of the best of the best.
Okay, for sale.
So I'm going to ask one more quick question, and then we're going to take it to a commercial break.
Okay.
And then we're going to come back and talk about community engagement and the new approval for the training academy.
Right.
But I wanted to ask you, so you were the chief of police while David Morgan was sheriff, so
Right.
you apparently had a rapport, and then you became chief deputy sheriff,
Right.
Simmons. So how did that come about?
Yeah, I was a police chief whenever David Morgan was the sheriff. So again, we worked a lot together. Just the boundaries are such that we always work joint operations together. So there was a familiarity there.
Were you
with us.
currently the public administrator?
No, I was police chief, and then I moved to assistant county administrator.
Yeah.
And then Sheriff Morgan contacted me and said, "Hey, why don't you come over here?" He liked some of the things we were doing as Pensacola Police Department. We were innovative with some of the things that we were doing, and it didn't take me long, but because I wanted to get back in law enforcement, and so I was placed as a chief deputy over operations. So I was over again uniform patrol, investigations, narcotics, SWAT. I was over all that stuff that I had been over at the Pensacola Police Department, and then we instituted some of the programs that we used at the Pensacola Police Department.
So you were able to take a lot of knowledge
Right.
that you learned there with your 29 years and
Yes.
implement it in the sheriff's office, which to me is fantastic that you were able to do that.
And when we come back off the break, we'll ask you how's Tommy doing. I see you brought him over
Right.
from the. We'll ask you about that, and I have one more thing that we're probably end up, and I know Purcell has some things, so we still got a couple more.
So we're going to take
Good
a
talk.
quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Great Change Cleaning Service is Pensacola's premier housekeeping service. We specialize in residential, short-term rentals, and small office cleaning. We want to get your home or office fabulously clean at a reasonable price. Call Great Change Cleaning Service so we can set up a time to get your home or office Great Change clean.
Welcome back. Sheriff, as we were talking earlier, Chief Tommy Leiter, former Chief Pensacola Police Department, he followed in your footsteps. Give us an update on him, because I know he's working, he's really low key, and I'm sure as well as myself, there are other folks out there who want to get an update on how Tommy is doing.
Yeah, when I was the police chief, you do something called succession planning. You start taking a look at where the agency is going to go if you're not selfish. So we started moving people in place so that they could take our place, and Tommy Leiter was one of those individuals. So when I left, soon thereafter, Tommy became the Pensacola police chief, and I was the chief deputy at the time. So when I got elected as the sheriff, I wanted to surround myself, as I mentioned before, when we talked offline, you surround yourself with good people. And that's really what I wanted to do. So Tommy was the police chief, and I had a need for a chief deputy. I have some good people at the sheriff's office, but I want the experience that Tommy brought in. He was familiar with me as the police chief, and we worked very well together. So Tommy, I brought along as my chief deputy, and so he works very well with. We have Commander Andy Hobbs that most people know, does a really good job, and that kind of works. That plays really well with our enforcement and our engagement strategy that we've been using.
Okay, and the other thing I was actually about, we'll do that later on, about the program that you have for the young folks.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd like to talk about the community engagement model. I'm very interested in that, and I'd like to know how it's working, exactly what you do. If you could just give me the concepts.
Well, when law enforcement today is different than it used to be, and
just like the school district.
Just like, well, so when I first got elected, I knew that we had to increase our enforcement. We had, there's some crimes that needed to be addressed, and we've done that. But I also knew that you have to increase our engagement. So I thought, why can't you have both? Why can't you have an aggressive enforcement strategy, but also have an aggressive engagement strategy? So I think we were leaving some stuff on the table. So we started doing a lot more. Part of that is what we call movie nights. We created a Escambia County Sheriff Foundation that helped us and is paying. So we don't use taxpayer dollars. We've received from the foundation a giant screen. So we go into our various neighborhoods, and so the kids can come and they can watch a movie, and we can feed them hamburgers
like
and hot dogs.
Up in a park
somewhere.
Yeah,
in a park. And
what
the
kind
thought,
of movies do you show?
We show mostly Disney type movies, movies for kids. It's designed for the kids.
Families.
And the thought is that these are kids that won't be able to go to a movie theater. They can't go to the beach and watch a movie, but you know what? We can take the movie to them.
Yeah.
So we approached the Escambia County Sheriff Foundation, President Brian Williams and Vice President Whitney Lucas, as we talked about earlier, and they said, what do you need? And so they raised almost $200,000, and we got this giant screen. So the thought is that for 2 hours while they watch a movie, they're not going to be hungry because we're going to feed them.
Yeah.
They're going to be safe because they're surrounded by law enforcement officers and people that care about them. And you know what? They'll know what it was like back in our day when you go to a drive-in movie. You'll sit there in a chair and you'll watch a movie, and you'll enjoy yourself, and we'll have that opportunity to engage, to talk to the kids, and to find out what they got going on.
Or do they drop
yes,
them off?
no, they don't drop. Well, they may drop them off, but the design
So
is
it's
for
a
them to
family.
bring your family, so that we can again talk to your parents. And if you have any questions, they can ask questions. And none of this costs taxpayers paid anything. The foundation pays for the the screen. The foundation pays for a number of other things. And the Law Enforcement Trust Fund, which is C's funds, we pay for the hamburgers and hot dogs. It's not for us, it's for the kids to eat. So this is just one piece of the engagement strategy. We've upped our game on neighborhood watches. And then what you're referring to, Charles, earlier is the Blazer Academy,
Right.
that we have. And if you want, I can go over that.
Yes,
That is-
please, that's important.
I was able to coach football a lot when I was at the police department, and my kids played, so I coached them, and I realized that these kids have a need to be mentored, have a need to have someone share time with them and to answer questions that they may not have. So I realized, if I could do that as a coach, maybe I can do that as the sheriff. Maybe I can have a program where, in our case, 13, 14, 15-year-olds can come and again, we can feed them, we can teach them what it's like to be a gentleman. We can teach, and also subsequently we did this for females as well. So we have a young men's and young ladies Blazer Academy.
Is this something that they sign up for? Do parents have to sign them up?
Yes, we have to have their permission. So that they
Right,
do something. It's not necessarily for high risk individuals.
Okay.
It's not exclusively for them, but we do have our share of those. We have some partnerships that some parents call us up, or some pastors call us up and say that I have a young man or I have a young lady that sure could use this Blazer Academy.
Great.
So the thought is that we use our shared experiences and we teach them. We talk to them about things that we've seen, things that we've experienced, and by the way, we also outfit them with a blazer, a tie. We work on etiquette. We work on, again, how to be a gentleman. We work on what it takes to be a man in our society, what it takes to be a woman in our society, and it's just basically unapologetically leadership and mentorship is really what it is. And what we talked about, all these things surrounded this platform that is the envy of the state of Florida. The Blazer Academy is the program of the year for the entire state of Florida. Way to go. We went down to South Florida to accept our award as the program of the year. And before I left the stage after accepting the award, I was approached by 4 different agencies on how they can create another one, a program similar to what we have done. So we're very
That's
proud of
amazing.
it. We
That's
get calls almost every week about the Blazer Academy, but also the movie nights and different things that we have.
How long does the Blazer Academy course last? Is it like a weekly thing and it lasts like 8 weeks?
That's a good question. It's every Tuesday night for 4 weeks, and then we had to improve it and increase it to 6 because the kids didn't want to leave. I mean, the kids said, "Hey,
That's
can we do
great,
this a little
yeah.
bit longer?" And there was some more things. We had built a rapport with these kids,
Is
so
it
much so
something
that
that
we wanted
happens
them
once
there.
a year? You have it for 4 or 6 weeks once a year, or is it ongoing?
It depends on the
every week?
need. I mean, it's a lot of work. I'm not going to lie, it's a
Yeah.
lot of work, but it's really worth it. So we look to have probably 2 young men's classes and 1 young ladies classes a year. So we're going to probably Monday. I'm not sure when this will air again, but Monday we'll open up for on our Facebook page to let people
Registration.
know that if they're interested in a spot, because we can't have unlimited number of people. So we look to have about 15 to 20 young men and 15 to 20 young women.
I'm just sitting here and I'm amazed at that, because those are programs that you normally find within fraternities, sororities, maybe some Masonic organization, more so in
Just a
fraternity.
private thing.
Yes, it's a private thing, but to take that into an organization where there's an enforcement piece and to have that community involvement where you kind of find a gray area, and then what that does, you're not only sending a message to these kids that it's okay when you see the police in
Right.
uniform, but you're sending that message to the parents as well. So my hat's off to you and that particular program. It is something that is barely needed. A lot of us stay awake at night for the young folks, and we know that as you continue with the program and all, and others have program, it's a good thing for our young
Well,
folks.
that's a good point. If you sit around and you're thinking someone should do something, well, we thought,
Get
what?
up and do it.
Why don't we do it? Let's just
Yeah.
do this. And the community has been very gracious. We've had donations, and obviously the Sheriff Foundation is really supporting what we're doing. Again, this is not costing the taxpayers any money, even though if it did, it's still, this thing would pay dividends, and like you said, it would certainly be worth it. But we're very proud of the program. We continue to expand it. We evolve with it, but it
I'd
gives us a
like to see
chance
it
to
a
talk about the
year-round thing.
fentanyl and different things. We get to give them some of these cautionary tales of some people and individuals that we have seen, and what's really ironic about it is a lot of times our instructors, which are at this point just or sheriff's office employees, they've gone through some of the same things. We have some that have lost a parent at an early age. We have some that were homeless at an early age. We have some that were little brothers and big brothers, big sisters type of organization. So there's some shared experiences there, and then there's some that we just don't know. We haven't experienced, but we have seen. And again, we can kind of give them the idea that this is a dead end road type of thing. And if you need us, if you need to talk to someone, we are there. So we share our phone numbers, and there's just a relationship that is built that hopefully will last for years.
Now it was rumored, probably 15, 20 years, maybe 10 years ago, that the sheriff department had a helicopter. I've never seen it. Can you either put that to rest, put something on that?
Well, that's true. So many years ago, they did have a helicopter, and by say that we had a helicopter. But we no longer have a helicopter. There's a big expense to the helicopter. A lot of other agencies, even some that are close by, have helicopters for, looking for drugs and looking for missing individuals. I happen to think that drone programs are more cost efficient. We can, if we have a missing person, and just last night we had a missing 11-year-old, so we had all the resources out there. And what we'll do is we'll put a drone up in the air and we'll map out an area. And a lot of times they have heat sensors, infrared, and it can help us in finding a missing child, a missing elderly individual. So to me, there's not as much of a need for a helicopter. I know Los Angeles, Miami probably have helicopters. We can get by with a handful of drones and a robust drone program, which is what we're aiming to do, to incorporate with our real-time crime center that I mentioned a couple minutes ago.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you have any high-risk programs similar to the Blaze program that's geared toward high risk?
We do have some high-risk individuals that are in our Blazer Academy. So that's what we would offer. If someone was to come with us and they had a high-risk individual or high-risk child, then we will put them in our Blazer Academy. And the others we rely on our partners. We have law enforcement trust fund dollars that are seized money that we will provide to individuals that do provide those programs. And we don't really have a specific high risk only program, but again, we're in the community so much that people know where they can find the sheriff's office personnel, and we're willing to do whatever it takes to make our community safe.
I know you. I know this for a fact because I know Dale Poe in that area, and that's that Mayfair area, a high risk area, and I know that you and the sheriff department have spent some time, I don't know, and that you're engaged in that particular area with Pastor Poe and his program. So I'm just bringing up some things that's factual that I've seen you out there, your department out there doing some things. Could you mention those type programs?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's important to note. You started the program off by saying you're a homegrown, a homegrown boy. And I think that's valuable. You talk about Pastor Miller. I was a police chief for a number of years, so I got to know a lot of these other police chiefs, and I got to know people in the various churches. And to speak about Pastor Pogue, I went to high school and played football with Larry and Pogue, Dale Pogue, you know him by, and his wife Tara. And so whenever he called. And I said, yes, let's, I knew him already, that we already had that relationship. He already knew that he could trust me, and I knew I could trust him. And we both knew that one or the other had a desire to help our community to get better. So again, it just took off from there. So we had a couple of events. He has, as you know, he's very engaged in his community.
He is.
And so we want to do what we could to help him, whether it's a turkey giveaway, which he does, a Christmas thing that he does, a food giveaway, or just a neighborhood watch that he hosts in his church. And I think the world of them. Again, just two of the finest folks that I know, and we're fortunate enough to be able to work together and to have partners in various neighborhoods that we can go there and we know who to contact, and we know who wants to work with the sheriff's office.
Do we have certain areas now out there that we call high activity areas? I'm a layperson, but
right.
People talk, and I'm always around people and folks, and I hear talk about, say, Ensley, Mayfair, Montclair, and a couple areas. Are these what's the approach that we take so to areas like that where we feel that these, I guess I would say high crime areas, even whether it be, no matter the crime, even if it's just what they call the low level, high level. How do we deal with those type areas?
Well, you mentioned high crime because some people say, oh, we don't want to call this area high crime and that area not high crime. I deal in facts. And I deal in statistics, and it's hard to say, if you have this many calls for service in this particular beat or area versus this area, then this is a higher need area. This is a higher crime area. More crimes reported in this area than in this other area.
That's a fact.
So what we have to do is we always use data to determine where we're going to put our resources. So if we have an area that has more need for services, we'll put more deputies in that area, and we'll take what we call a multi-prong approach. We'll keep with our engagement, and we may do a movie night in that area to make sure that they understand they've not been forgotten. That we understand that what you really want to do is to raise your family in a safe and nurturing environment. And so, on the other hand, we also know that we're going to put our enforcement efforts in that area. We're going to to put our narcotics unit on the areas. We're going to look at Crime Stoppers and say, okay, what information are we getting in this particular area? And if you're dealing in drugs, if you're dealing with guns and you're shooting people, you're going to be identified by the sheriff's office, and you're going to be stopped. You're going to be apprehended. Part of what we started to do is be a little more aggressive with our pursuits. If an individual is just has a tag light out or something, we're probably not going to pursue them. But if it's an individual that we have information as guns, stolen guns, used guns, or trafficking fentanyl, we will stop that individual, and we will put a stop to those chases as quickly as we possibly can. So the answer to your question is we use the data, we put our resources in that particular area, and then we overwhelm them with law enforcement presence, and we let them know that you're destroying a community, and we're not going to have any of that.
This is Charles talking. It's not the sheriff, and I would take my perception is that whether it's enforcement, whether it's community involvement, the overall objective is a decrease in crime, and both enforcement and community involvement. The gray area is to decrease the crime for the folks in that area.
Well, we are a law enforcement and a law and order agency. That's what the Escambia County wants. The Escambia County elected Chip Simmons to be a law and order sheriff, and that's what we're going to do. We don't turn our back on the people that are ruining our communities. And I know that people say, oh, you shouldn't do this, and you shouldn't bump a car that's running from you. Well, here's the thing. That individual is harming our community, and I'm going to stop that car. And I told our lieutenants that you got to do what you need to do to put them in jail, to hold them accountable for the crime that they're in, the destruction that they're doing in our community. And that's, then we'll turn it over to the state attorney's office to prosecute, to the judicial system to hopefully put them in jail, because if they're in jail, they're not damaging our community. And again, I'm a believer in second chances, but you can't cut someone, you can't shoot somebody, you can't rob someone, you can't fight deputies and expect to get away with it, because you're not going to in Escambia County.
Are the majority of criminals drug related?
Yes.
So like 99% or 100%, do you think that criminals are on drugs?
I think that when you say something's drug related, it's twofold. One is they may be on drugs, but drugs related to it. We talked a little bit about some of the homicide statistics when we had our roundtable a couple months ago, and I said 2/3.
What kind of drugs also?
It's methamphetamine, it's cocaine, and it's fentanyl.
So
those
it's the
three are the
drugs.
ones that are killing people, the ones that are people are overdosing
and ruining
on.
lives and making people
Absolutely.
homeless and giving them criminally insane minds.
It is doing so much damage that
So how do we get those drugs out of our community? How do we do it?
Again, it's a multi-pronged approach. We're going to do our part. We're partnering with some of our state partners. Pensacola Police Department, we're partnering with them. We're in task forces with DEA to stop it from coming into Escambia County. Now, am I naive to think that we can stop every little bit? No, but if we let them know that if you're trafficking in fentanyl, if you're trafficking in cocaine, I've done a couple of press conferences and I've told them this little bit of fentanyl can kill 50,000. One time we did something could kill up to 800,000 people.
And it could kill an innocent
theoretically.
person.
It certainly could, because they don't know how much fentanyl's in this one piece.
Yeah, or that can it kill somebody that's not even trying to do drugs if they touch it or something?
Well, it could conceivably do that. Yeah,
that's what I'm worried about. Is an innocent person that doesn't even do drugs getting killed?
Well, the last one we were talking about, we did a search warrant, and there was a baby bed, and there was some what we tested for positive for fentanyl nearby. Now that's just horrifying to me that these people would do that sort of thing near a small child.
But they
and so
do,
there's no safe harbor for those individuals. So we're doing more drug enforcement with regards to larger and longer term investigations than we have done in probably decades here in Escambia County. But again, that's just one prong. The other prong is to make sure that our uniform presence is there, and they do a fantastic job as well. We're seizing guns on a daily basis. Many times they're stolen, and you asked a question earlier about whether drugs are involved. Probably 2/3 of our homicides are drug related, and the other 1/3 is domestic violence related. Where a husband or wife would do that, or a family member would take someone's life.
I would say to the folks out there in the community, and the sheriff probably have said this before, that one way to help decrease crime overall in some areas, and what we call the high crime areas and other areas, if you see something, say something. And I'm sure the sheriff has a program where you can say something through, and I think if we all came together collectively, I know when I was coming up, if I done anything, I would get my little pat before I got home, and then I would get my pat when I got home. Then I would have to go in the closet.
There was no messing up when I was growing up.
I would have to go in the closet and face the wall. So we can't do that now. So but if you see something in your neighborhood and you know something is going wrong, because in the other days and other times, now parents are more I won't say protective, but they're more defensive and late to realize some of the things that's going on with their kids, and some of them even refuse to. And I would say that no one is perfect, not even children. Not even children. Right. They're not perfect, and they do things. So if someone come to you and you hear it 2 or 3 times, you may want to check on that and everything.
Recently, we had a press conference, and I've told people that if you see what what's damaging your neighborhood, call Crime Stoppers, call us. But I also had this message for parents, and because I was amazed at some of the people say, I had no idea that my son was involved in this or that. And this is what we're seeing. The reason I say son is because we're seeing this on late teens and early 20s males. This is where we're seeing the gun violence, right, and the drug violence. So I'll tell you this as a parent: if your child is walking around with different cars, driving cars that look to be different every day, they're probably stolen. Ask the questions. If they're running around with a lot of money but they don't have a job, if you see weapons on them, that is a dead-end street, and there's no doubt that person is up to no good. You need to get involved. You need to make sure that they understand that this is no way to live your life, right. And if you continue to do this, you run the risk of getting killed yourself.
And it's not being a snitch. It's not just trying to get somebody in trouble because, I got you in trouble.
Right.
It's helping them. It's helping them save their lives.
It's being a parent. It's being a family member. Yeah. It's even being a friend.
Yeah,
now.
Or a neighbor. Or just,
or a neighbor.
Yeah. Or a friend, a peer.
Because what's happening, they're stealing cars, they're stealing guns, and then they're going to committing drive-by shootings, all right?
Yeah. And then they get killed.
As a parent, I knew when my kids were up to something, I knew. I asked them questions about where they're going. I asked questions about who they're hanging out with. And again, I'm not saying my parenting model is the only one. People have make their own choices. People are free in our society.
Well, if we can see how your kids grew up, it might be a good model, right?
Well, I would hope so. I'm very proud of obviously my family.
I feel the same way about my son. You know, we always know where he is.
Right. And you talk to him, and you find out. So if your children, again, are driving a new car every day, and they can't answer to you whose car it is or where it came from, that's a clue.
Obvious.
That is a clue that something's going on. And if you really want to save them, you should have that conversation with them.
So, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say one of the third prong, one of those prongs to that getting to where we need to be, that solution, a decrease in crime, I think is parental involvement, neighbors' involvement. The goal is to not do anything bad or harm that person. The overall goal, having that person locked up or detained or put in juvenile detention, may in actuality save that individual life. To turn your head is almost like
That's enabling them.
yeah.
And it's just making it
Sometimes
worse.
if you report someone, they could be salvageable.
Yeah,
But if
yeah.
you let them go on and getting hard and eventually they feel like they're invincible and can get away with it, and that's when it normally catches up.
If you're parenting your children, you're not likely to even have any involvement with law enforcement, right? You can parent them, and you can have discussions with them, and you can correct their behavior without getting law enforcement involved.
Oh, yeah.
Many times, unfortunately, when we get involved, it's because they have done something, a felon. They've taken a life, they've injured somebody, and it's hard to come back from that. I mean, we're not going to turn
It's
a blind
too
eye to
late
that.
after that.
We're
It's
going
too
to put
late to
them
be
in
a good
jail.
parent.
We're going to let the
That's
justice
when it's
system
over.
deal with them. So if you parent them, you won't have a relationship with, or you won't have interaction with the law enforcement. Certainly not a negative one. And because when we do it, when we stop them in that stolen car, we stop them with that gun, with that fentanyl tablets, or with those drugs, then it's too late. Then it is too late. They're going to jail because there's while I believe in second chances, you can't harm an entire community by your actions. Expect us to turn a blind eye, because again, that's not going to happen.
Thank you, yes. So did you go to a police academy?
Yes.
Okay, where was that located?
When I went to the police academy, it was at Pensacola Junior College.
Okay.
And in 1990 or so, they moved that to Georgetown Technical under the
Okay.
school board, the local school district.
So do police and sheriff go to that same academy, or, okay,
Yes, within the state of Florida, you have to have a law enforcement certification. And to do that, they have regional training facilities. And one for our region when I went at Pensacola Junior College, and was recently only at Georgetown.
okay.
We wanted our own training academy.
Was the
So-
one you went to like the movie, the 1980?
No, it was not. Well, I mean, we something, but it was nowhere near the movie like that. In
I know.
fact, that program itself was put on by. I know it's a comedy. I know it's silly,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but that program was put on by that agency alone. Florida Highway Patrol has their own training academy, so everyone that gets hired as a trooper goes to Tallahassee, and they
Okay.
go to their training academy, and they get to be immersed in their culture. And we wanted that. We have the facilities. In fact, George Stone, who obviously trained hundreds of local law enforcement officers from Escambia County, Santa Rosa County, Pensacola Police Department, Gulf Breeze, all of the agencies locally. By and large, they all got their officers from George Stone. They were certified through George Stone. But what we have to do when we get an officer or a deputy, we have to kind of teach them everything about the sheriff's office. So when we get them, they teach a generic form of law
Right.
enforcement. And I
It's
understand
like
that's
getting
what
your
they
real
should
estate
do.
license.
Yeah.
You learn the real estate
And
law,
then
but
when
then
you
you have
get
to
here-
get out and really do
Yeah.
real estate. Yeah.
So I mean, when we get them, then we have to teach them where the garage is, where to get gas at, where's finance, where's training, and
Yeah,
we have
just
to
the
teach them a lot of
day-to-day activities.
the things. We have to certify them with our own taser and our own pepper spray certification.
Yeah.
So this will enable us to, from day one, immerse them in our culture
Yeah.
with our policies. They will use the computers that they'll use in our cruiser cars.
And then y'all have
certify them.
continuing ed also.
Yes, we have
Just
specialized training
ongoing,
that continues to go. So again, it's going to be a lot quicker for us. That doesn't mean George Stone is going to cease to exist. They're still going to provide law enforcement training to whoever wants to go to them, which typically is Pensacola Police Department in Santa Rosa County.
Okay.
We're
But
just
you're
hiring
opening
our
your own.
deputies.
Are you starting a new police academy?
Yes.
Sheriff's
It's going to be the
Academy.
Escambia County Sheriff's Training Academy.
Where is that
And
one?
it's going to be at our facilities. We have the
Okay.
facilities already.
Okay.
In fact,
Are
the
people
range
already
that they
going through
use.
the- are people
No,
already-
we'll
okay.
start in probably the first week in June. We'll have our
Oh, so
first
it's
training
brand
academy.
new.
It's
Okay.
brand new. Yeah, we
Sign
had
me up.
Well, we have had people calling us up saying, hey, we were interested in
I just
that
want to
sort
go
of
through
thing.
the academy. I don't
Yeah,
want to
it's
be
not
a
like it is
police.
on TV, remember? but we just recently got certified. We went down to South Florida, myself, and some of our command staff went down to South Florida to discuss it with the commission to get our certification, and it was a unanimous vote. They understood that we have the facilities, we have the instruction, we have the intent, we have the program and the platform
And the
to be able to
budgeting
train our own
and everything.
and to certify our own deputies, and they understood that it will be a little quicker for us to get them on the street, to serve our
How
community.
many people will go through the course at a time?
It's up to us. We can, again,
Okay.
we can start it when we want. We can put as a large or a small class as we want. We look to have in this first class probably 20, but then what we'll do is we'll evaluate our need. If our needs are such that we start one with 10, we'll start one with 10.
Okay.
If we have some attrition, some retirements, then we could expand that up to 25 or so.
Do you have pre-qualifications on applicants that you would accept? into the...
Yeah, if you have to be qualified to become a deputy. So we're not going to hire you unless you
or even
fit
put
this
you
criteria.
through the academy.
Right.
Okay.
We have a
so,
cadet
so if
program.
they're going through
we
the
hire them, too.
academy, they're hired. Is
Yes,
that correct?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So they're
Our
on
plan is to
payroll.
hire them. That's
Okay.
correct. Now, it's possible that if Pensacola Police Department or Santa Rosa County wants to send someone, and I told them we would accept the one if they wanted us to, but the reality is they'll probably still go to George Stone and because they have a couple classes for them to go through.
Well, thank you, Chip, for being on the show. I really appreciate you having here. It's great to see you as always. And
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you as well. I've known you from the days when you was the police chief, and I would come over and complain to you about something, and you would sit down. We would sit down at the computer, and you would show me some data. I would be up there complaining about something that's going on in the neighborhood, and you would just, you had a computer in your office, and you could go over there, and
Right.
everything was factual based. A lot of this sheriff decision are factual based. I have actually sat in his office. We're very, very proud to have you. You're approachable if you do it in the right way. He is approachable, but he's a law enforcement officer, and he's a community engagement person. So we're just blessed to have someone who cares about law enforcement and the community as well, because within law enforcement, the law enforcement has to be your foundation,
Right.
and you build on community involvement, and that's the problem we've been lacking. It's the community involvement piece. We have law enforcement, but I want to thank you for your community involvement piece.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. And I want to thank our viewers for watching this episode of the Thornton Review. We hope you'll tune in for our next show. We air live every other Thursday at 4 p.m. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.